strong.
Chapter 341, As One's Own. The people in the distance heard Ye Fusion's words slightly wrong, and it was as arrogant as the rumors said. In the Qin dynasty residence, facing Wuling guarding the stone statue, he was very confident. Killing Jin. A cold voice came out, and then Ye Fusion and the rest of his life only felt an invisible gravity pressing down on them, as if a huge idol was pressing down on their bodies. It was difficult to move, not only how, there is also a strong will, a terrible burning will, and in his mind, there seems to be a Wuling monster. The rest of my life, Ye Fusion shouted, stepped forward, and the shadow of the cape appeared. His breath became very wild. For the rest of his life, he held on to Fang Tianhua's spear and followed him. The two of them walked, every step was very heavy. Yes, the two of them slammed on the ground, their bodies sped forward, and in front of them, a group of strong people stood in battle lines, watching them indifferently. The Dragon Emperor broke out, turned the dragon into war, and danced wildly in the void. When they saw Ye Fusion and the rest of his life, they screamed, the guns in their hands were killed at the same time, and the roar of the great void was killed. The overwhelming power seemed to give him even more strength, roaring towards Ye Fusion and the rest of his life. The rest of his life slammed into the ground, his breath erupted, became more terrifying, and the image of the demon ghost was stronger. He stepped forward to Ye Fusion, Fang Tianhua's killing rushed forward. The shadow devil synchronized with him, splitting everything apart. Fang Tianhua's spear magically collided with the real dragon body, and the real dragon body trembled, but the terrifying power also shook in the body of the rest of his life. He roared, as if the demon roared, and the head of the demon rushed out, then was crushed by the shadow of a true dragon. A figure floated away. It was Ye Fusion, who ran towards the Qin dynasty's battle line, and the whistling aura between heaven and earth gathered and turned into an enormous stick. The five elemental scepter is beyond the level of the law, and cannot be brought into the ancient world of the desert, and the same applies to the magic tripod for the rest of life. The long stick condensed and formed, shattered, with an extremely wild momentum, splitting everything apart. The strong men in the battle line shouted, attacking at the same time, their power resonating and turning into a dragon-shaped light curtain. Bang! The stick fell with endless force, as if there was boundless gravity. The strong people on the battlefield snorted, and the people who fixed the weakness were instantly spit out by the shock, and the battlefield collapsed instantly. Many people they were shaken back in different directions. Ye Fusion ignored them, and walked straight ahead, walking towards the depths of the small palace. The battle formed by the strong people came after. The rest of his life was a blow, and Fangshan Waji was swept away. A responsible husband. Stop him. Some people saw Ye Fusion screaming in the direction he was going, but the Qin dynasty who came here did not have time to form a battle. How can they be Ye Fusion's opponent in the realm of law, moon, the meaning of water and fire when it arrives? It will be like the last day. Ye Fusion's body went straight to the stone statue of the golden-winged Daping bird guarded by Wuling. This stone statue is very large, with strange eyes, a bright whole body, and double wings. There was a figure behind the stone statue standing there, communicating with the will. The stone statue attacked him. For a while, Ye Fusion only felt that there was a golden-winged rock bird flying in his mind. His eyes became strange, and he let his will explode in his mind. He was surprised to find that there was indeed a golden-winged rock ray in the stone statue, and a persistent and sharp will to kill everything to destroy his will. The terrible empire will rush straight to the stone statue, and then find the desire to control the stone statue. If the will of the golden-winged Daping bird is to attack him, he will not do it, but he is only a person in the field of law. Control, how is it possible to eliminate his will? And the moment he saw these statues, he knew that there would be no tension in this battle. In this ancient world, what is left can confuse him. Behind the golden-winged Daping bird, the strong man of the Qin dynasty screamed. He stepped back and looked at Ye Fusion in horror. What level of will is it? How can it be so strong? A crackling sound came out, and the vines on the sun tree rolled towards each other's bodies, then annihilated, and Ye Fusion blinked, stood on the golden-winged rock statue of a rock bird, then closed his eyes, his will entering into it. In front of the stone statue, the ruthless body of the rest of his life struggled and retreated, and he came here to drag the battle formed by the many strong people in the Qin dynasty with the strength of one person. Even though it was only a short time, it was still amazing. What did he do? Many people in the empty space outside the little palace saw Ye Fusion's movement unfold. Ye Fusion was standing behind the golden winged darping bird at this moment. Her white clothes fluttered and her hair fluttered. He looked absolutely amazing. Ye Fusion once controlled the statue at the top of Mirror Mountain. Someone said, Ye Fusion became famous in the ancient world, and then Jiu Dongyu went to take him as a student of the lodge. Is it possible? When this thought came out, they saw the golden winged rock statue suddenly lit up, as if alive, the bright golden light of the whole body shone, as if flying with wings. The people of the Qin dynasty froze and looked at the scene in shock. The Wuling defense is a relic of the ancient world, which was occupied by their Qin dynasty. Over the years, many strong people in the Qin dynasty used them to train and fight, but stone statues have never been as bright as today. Not good. They all had an unknown premonition. The next moment, they felt the incomparable desire of Darping's golden wings come into their minds, ignoring physical defenses, and stab directly at their spiritual power. This is an attack of spiritual desire. In their minds, it seems that there is a very sharp golden winged rock, someone is screaming, only feeling the pain of a strong mental will, almost collapsing, and can't defend it at all. Immediately, the powerful people of the Qin dynasty all felt the same scene. In the world of their will, the true king of the sky, the golden winged Darping, appears to kill all desires. The rest of his life stepped out, rushed into the battlefield, and the sky in his hand swept past him. A gurgling sound came out and the screams continued. Go out. The sound of fear came out, and many people fled, and those who controlled the other 5 spirits did not give up. They used the determination of the stone monster statue to surround Ye Fusion, invisible. In the space, the golden winged rock, the giant elephant, and the true dragon and 5 spirit monsters appeared at the same time, but the golden winged rock was more domineering, swept over everything, and headed straight for another stone statue. Well, the strong man behind Wuling vomited blood and turned to run away. In the void, countless channels saw the scene of a tremor, and the end of the battle would be like this, shattered. Ye Fusion and the rest of his life entered the residence of the Qin dynasty and instantly destroyed all existence of the Qin dynasty. They borrowed Wuling's defensive power, but did not expect that they would be controlled by Ye Fusion and used by Ye Fusion. It seems that no one in the wild world can stop them. Everyone said secretly in their hearts. I heard that in the ancient wasteland ancient kingdom, the Qin dynasty and the academy have officially started a war. The two sides often broke out with fierce killings, each with death and injury. I'm afraid it will be a long-term battle. On foot, there will be no big decisive battle. But in the ancient world of the desert, from the start, it seemed that it was destined, and the two were enough to sweep everything away. But what can the Qin dynasty say? Ye Fusion and the rest of his life are in the realm of the order of 8, even worse than many strong Qin dynasty. I am afraid that such an ending, the Qin dynasty did not expect it. Qin dynasty did not expect that at this time outside Qin palace, Qin Yu was furious and scolded Qin dynasty escaped a bunch of trash, saying that if one can enter the ancient land to kill Ye Fusion and the rest of his life, there will be a lot of rewards. However, no one dared to enter. What does it mean that so many strong people in the Qin dynasty died or fled? Ye Fusion and the rest of his life were invincible. Will he come in and die? The angry Qin Yuzu takes the position of a horse, as long as he is a practitioner in the eastern wasteland, no matter what his strength is, as long as he kills Ye Fusion in the ancient world, a princess can marry, countless hearts trembling. Qin Yu desperately wanted Ye Fusion to die, but unfortunately he couldn't enter the ancient desert, otherwise he would definitely cause someone to commit suicide. The news came to the ancient world, and the ancient world shook, signed that Ye Fusion's life is worthless today, killing him can be a horse for the Qin dynasty. But even so, no one dared to kill. Can't kill or dare to kill. The Qin dynasty can compete with thatched huts. Who else is brave? Of course, there is another reason why Qin Yuji ordered Ye Fusion to die in the following way, and now Ye Fusion is occupying his small palace in the ancient kingdom of the Qin dynasty. The people of the Qin dynasty now cannot enter the ancient world through the ancient world entrance in the palace. Is it true that before Ye Fusion stepped foot in the heavenly realm, the Qin dynasty's strong people couldn't even enter the ancient world? Just from the entrance of Liu Guo or other forces, then where is the face of the Qin dynasty? This cannot be tolerated. Ye Fusion naturally did not have time to pay attention to the Qin dynasty's anger. He directly sealed the Qin dynasty palace's entrance to the ancient wasteland. Then he and the rest of his life practiced secretly in the Qin dynasty's small palace. In the little palace, they seek a lot of good things in practice, and there are 5 spirit guards who can train with the help of sentiment. How can such a training environment be wasted? Buling Shorjen has the 5 elements attribute, and contains a strong spiritual will. When it came to realization, it progressed very quickly. Not only Ye Fusion, but also the rest of his life is practiced here. The ancient waste can't set foot for now, they can't pass through that battlefield, they can only gather interest here first. Unknowingly, several months passed, and the 2 practitioners gradually stepped into the realm of the 9th level of the law phase, and they were only 1 step away from the heavenly position. Chapter 342, The Emperor's Call. East Region, West Region, Shucheng. This town is a small town in the East Wasteland. Few people in this city are cultivated as high powers. For a special reason, the people who cultivate in the East Wasteland are very unwilling to come to Shucheng. In addition, Shucheng is very chaotic, and many generations of evil have been born. On the contrary, Shucheng also has many pure-minded people. In Shucheng, there are many Buddhist monks preaching here. These Buddhist monks are all out of Qiankyu Temple, and Shucheng is not far from Qiankyu Temple. At this time, in a restaurant in Shucheng, many guests were talking about drinking, and among them, there was a very strange combination. A tattered old man was lying on a chaise longue with his mouth open. Beside the old man, a young girl in green clothes sat beside him smiling, holding a jug, and pouring wine from the jug into the old man's mouth from the air. Good wine. The smiling old man's eyes narrowed into a slit, revealing a pleased expression. You always drink slowly, then order something. The girl in the green skirt took the jug, and then clamped a piece of meat into the old man's mouth. Many people in the restaurant looked at the sight, showing a strange look. The old man had a beard, the girl was slender and beautiful, even feeding wine and meat, jerk. Where did this come from? Shoulder a bit sour. The old man didn't seem to care about the eyes of other people in the restaurant, as if talking to himself. I rub it for you. The girl stood up with a smile, then stood behind the old man, rubbing his shoulders. The old man showed an expression of joy, closed his eyes, and was drunk. This fairy life is free, unlike the second girl in the family, disobedient. This. Many people in the restaurant couldn't take it anymore, and the old man would enjoy it too much. By your predecessors, I still can't fully understand the last few tricks you taught me last time. When can you teach me a few more tricks? The girl smiled softly and sweetly. I don't understand what you are saying, son. I haven't touched the old man's sword. Where is the sword? The old man closed his eyes and his voice was lazy. The girl didn't care, and continued to smile gently. When are you going to use the branch to pull back? You said last time, I made random moves. Next time you want to see me make some more moves for you to see. The old man said lazily, you girls are definitely going to magic, even like a sword. My parents, I don't know how to practice. The girl saw that the old man promised to laugh even more brilliantly, and the white jade-like hands were rubbed and choked, so don't enjoy it too much. Girl, I am from the Shuzhong Sword Gate. If you want to learn the sword, maybe I can teach you, said a middle-aged man in the restaurant, looking at the slender green girl. Thanks, uncle, but not anymore. The girl turned and smiled, and continued to serve the old man. Girls, lots of scammers in the practice world, be careful. The middle-aged reminded. Thank you very much for reminding me. The young girl nodded gently, and everyone shook their heads when they saw that the young girl was not listening. The old man is not good at first glance. Really comfortable. As they thought, the old man said very pleasantly, and suddenly many eyes stared at him angrily, right? The old man closed his eyes and enjoyed, no matter what others thought, drinking and eating meat, waiting for the girl, and enjoying life very much. At this time, the bell rang, and for a moment, it seemed that there was an invisible wave passing through the restaurant. The old man's eyelids shook violently, and then he sat up straight and his body was restrained. Couldn't stand the slight shaking. What sound? Other people's reactions are not as strong as the old man's, but their eyes are flickering, showing a strange expression. It seems like a bell, as if it came from a very far away place, and faintly enjoys the power of will hidden within them, leave them in their minds. Will trembled slightly. What happened? The green girl asked the old man. It was the first time he had seen the old man so dignified. During the past few months he had known the old man was very lazy and didn't care about anything. Active, the old man's body shook slightly, his body flickered, disappeared directly from the place, appeared outside the restaurant. The green-clothed girl froze, barely saw the old man's movements, took a deep breath, pulled his body, also flickering. Chased. At this time, the old man's gaze looked back, an invisible sound wave swept over, radiated the entire Shu city. All the figures came out of the house, and the people outside looked into the distance. At this time, everyone in Shucheng heard the bells one after another, and felt the ray of determination. The old man's gaze looked in one direction, and the others in Shucheng seemed to respond, looking in a certain direction, and the eyes of many people were somewhat sacred. There is a very faint mountain, the mountain is very high, as if it borders the sky, and the body of the mountain is like a holy light, so you can see it even thousands of miles away. Donghang's first mountain, Tianshan, was the closest place to the sky. Boom! A dull sound came out, and the ground shook slightly. The people in Shucheng looked down at the ground and their bodies trembled. These are waves from an earthquake. However, the old man has always looked towards Tianshan mountain, and his lazy eyes have become very sharp at this time, but the messy and shabby clothes are clean. He moved with the wind then. His long hair and messy beard also blew. The Italian girl looked at the old man, and her beautiful eyes remained motionless. At this time, the old man is a bit of a fairy. Many Qiankyu temple practitioners in Shucheng folded their hands together, their eyes and pupils seemed to have the light of Buddha. Looking at the Tianshan mountain in the distance, their eyes were very bright. A bell came from Tianshan. What is the sign? At this time, there was a 1,000-year-old ancient temple hundreds of miles away from Shucheng. At this time, a bell entered the ancient temple, and then the bells in the ancient temple rang together, as if resonating with them. On the high platform of the great ancient temple, a group of figures stood there, looking towards Tianshan in the distance. An old monk came, and many monks bowed slightly to him. Of course, the old monk was of very high status. He looked at Tianshan, holding the beads with his fingers, and spat out the Brahma complex in his mouth. Tianshan rings, this is the voice of the emperor. The old monk said that many of the monks in Qiankyu temple were shaking. The news of the Tianshan ringing bell spread quickly, and soon the western region of the eastern wasteland shook. In the western region, Tianshan has a special status. The eastern lands are shaking in the western region, and the news can't be hidden. Soon, it began to spread to other areas of the eastern lands. Gradually, all the top forces in the eastern desert got the news one after another, and Tianshan rang the bell of the western region. For a time, the news even covered the battle between the Qing dynasty and the academy in the ancient world. The eyes of the entire eastern wasteland were cast on the land of the western region. Ellipsis. Ye Fusion and the rest of his life have been practicing in today's ancient world, and that is in the Qing dynasty's small palace. At this time, a woman came to the small palace to find Ye Fusion, an academy disciple, Nangong Zhao. He and Ye Fusion also knew each other. Now he is cultivating to the peak of the far phase, and is preparing to influence the heavenly world like Ye Fusion. When Nangong Zhao saw Ye Fusion occupy the stronghold of the Qing dynasty in the ancient world, he fell silent. Are you going to practice? Ye Fusion looked at Nangong Zhao with a smile and asked, although there are some contradictions between the academy and the thatched hut, but it is an internal matter. At this time, the Qing dynasty wanted to dominate the eastern desert, and the academy and thatched huts naturally focused on each other. Nangong Zhao shook his head and said, I received news not long ago, and the Tianshan mountains in the western desert rang the bell. Now the entire eastern desert is talking about this. You don't ask for foreign affairs here, you may not know. Let me know you. Tianshan rings the bell. Ye Fusion showed his doubts. He came to the eastern wasteland for only a few years. Of course, it is impossible to understand the history of the eastern wasteland. Why did the bell ringing in Tianshan make the eastern wasteland speak? Tianshan is the first mountain in the eastern wasteland. This mountain is known as the closest place to the sky. In ancient history, Tianshan is a sacred place in the western region, a place of pilgrimage. It is said that at the peak of Tianshan they can understand the purest meaning from heaven and earth is a great help to spiritual practice, especially the incorporation of laws into the heavens. Of course, this is beyond verification. Nangong Zhao said, then, a big event occurred in Tianshan. According to some ancient books, a dark period appeared in the eastern wasteland hundreds of years ago, and a terrible demon bird appeared, feeding on the people, and in the eastern wasteland. The land of the western region became the land of purgatory, and the demon bird was very powerful, occupying the Tianshan sacred place of the eastern wasteland's western region until two people appeared. Talking about this, Nangong Zhao paused for a moment. There was a touch of magical glint in her beautiful eyes, like some longing. Who? Ye Fusion was curious to see Nangong Zhao's eyes. I don't know what their real names are, but you should also know them. According to legend, the two people who once appeared in the eastern desert were the two great emperors who ruled the world, Emperor Donghang and Ye King. Ningong Zhao with a solemn look, he slowly said, their footprints have headed towards the eastern wasteland, and in that era, they were not emperors yet. Ye Fusion's body shook. Of course he would not be familiar with these two names, and even have an unfamiliar relationship with them. He naturally knew that their footprints were to the eastern wasteland, and even to the most remote Qingzhou city in the eastern wasteland. What he didn't know was that in the eastern wasteland, they also had legends. There are many legends about the two emperors and Tianshan. Some people say that they are young. They travel together and travel the world, exposing the evil in the world. When they meet the magical birds in the eastern wasteland, they suppress them in Tianshan forever, but Tianshan also some changes have taken place, and almost no one can set foot. For example, today there is a bell on the mountain. Some people claim that this is the emperor's summons. Chapter 343, Fengung Club. Ye Fusion and the rest of his life left the ancient world. Before leaving, they transferred the Wuling guards of the Qin dynasty directly to the entrance and exit of the ancient world of the academy. Many people in the deserted city looked at this scene completely speechless. This is a robber. Do not miss. Shi's brother. Thatched hut, Ye Fusion found Zhu Hui. Come back. Zhu Gehui laughed when he saw Ye Fusion and the rest of his life. Ye Fusion nodded and asked, Sister, Ningong Zhao from the academy said that there are legends of Emperor Donghang and Ye King in the Tianshan mountains. Is the legend recorded in ancient books true? That's right, Zhu Hui nodded. Why don't people from farther afield come to search? Ye Fusion wondered, and now the Eastern Phoenix Emperor is the co-ruler of the world. Since there may be a legend on Tianshan mountain in the eastern wasteland, the world must chase after it. This may be related to the instructions he once issued, which was about Donghang. The second sister responded with a smile. Ye Fusion's eyes flashed, his eyes looked at the older sister, and he smiled, my big sister knows a lot. Otherwise, your brother, said Zhu Hui with a smile. Ye Fusion scratched his head, as if it made sense. Brother, I want to go to Tianshan. Ye Fusion said again, and he was not polite to sister. He already thought of the cottage as his home, so the family naturally didn't need to be affectionate. Not to mention if there was a bell coming out of the mountain today, even if not, if he knew that there was a trace of Ye Qingdi on Tianshan mountain, he would definitely check it out. His life experience probably had something to do with Emperor Ye King. Nandu Guizhuo predicted that he had the fate of the empire, and that the will of the empire was born in his body. All of this required him to explore and pursue. Now, when he finds an opportunity, he must not pass it up. Of course, he also understood that his life might not be a good thing for him, so he had to be careful about how the seniors of the Snow Ape would not understand. Okay. Zhu Hui smiled and nodded, I will go with you. Thank you, sister, Ye Fusion said, since there is a legend of the two emperors in the Tianshan mountains, will the sister and the three brothers go to rest? My brother and I are afraid that I will not have the opportunity to go to the top of the Tianshan mountains. Zhu Hui smiled and shook his head. Tianshan is next to Shu city. Emperor Donghang and Ye King suppressed the magic birds at that time, but it is rumored that the magic birds will remain intact and stored in the above Tianshan mountains. The will of the two emperors and magical birds are contained in the Tianshan mountains. The stronger a person is, the easier it is to feel an influence. Even in the city of Shu, thousands of miles away, very few strong people set foot. Tianshan influence was the only place where Qiangqiu Temple stood not far from Tianshan mountain. They used determination on Tianshan mountain to quell their own desires for Buddhism and Taoism and consolidate Taoism. So wouldn't it be easier for people who don't understand the practice? Ye Fusion showed a strange look. Theoretically, that's true. Zhu Hui smiled and nodded, but if he doesn't understand this practice, he can't go to Tianshan, but now that there is a bell ringing in Tianshan, there may be some chance to come and make fun of okay. Brother, can I go too? Zhu Ye stepped forward, trembling. Is it a year? Zhu Hui asked with a smile. Isn't this to take care of my little brother and sister, and if something gets in the way, he can also order me to do it, Zhu Ye said slickly. Zhu Hui looked at him with a smile, and then said, since you are reasonable, go and call your brothers. Okay. Zhu Ye instantly activated, turned around and left. Ye Fusion heard this and understood. It seems that the teacher and second sister are planning to let the Kotang brothers go to Tianshan to have a look this time. After all, there is a legend of the two emperors on Tianshan mountain. If there is a bell on the mountain today, there may be signs. Ellipsis. Thatched huts never worry about the eastern lands. This time, even the hut decided to come out of the mountain, which shows that the bell of the Tianshan mountains has a great impact. Naturally, there was no need to say a word, everyone left for Tianshan Shucheng. Especially in the western region, endless powerful forces, all on a pilgrimage, went to Tianshan. For a time, Donghang trembled, even if the Qin dynasty invited the main forces to observe Qin Mengruo and Qian Shenmu's wedding ceremony, the opening of the East Qin Academy, the battle between Jiu Dongyu and Lu Nanshan, there was no such bell in Tianshan this time. Get attention. Last time, it was mainly the top-tier troops in the eastern wasteland and relatively strong forces. But this time, in addition to the great powers in the eastern wasteland, the strong people in the eastern wasteland and western region don't know how many people have left. In addition, there are many strong people in other domains. It doesn't matter if they are Jiu Dongyu or Lu Nanshan, if they are extraordinary, how can they be compared to today's great Donghang master, and the relics of the two East China emperors ring the bell, and you can imagine what kind of tremors will be generated. The closest Shu city to Tianshan, Fengjian Huabi, I don't know how many strong people have come. This small town that had several strong people over the years had been a gathering place in the eastern wasteland for a while. The whole city is full of people in the sky. The strong can be seen everywhere, and those who walk on the road may even be princes. The Qin dynasty's power has arrived. The Qin dynasty came to this country with mighty and powerful people, and there were many strong people. There is no doubt that the Qin dynasty, which is now at war with the ancient world war with the academy, is undoubtedly visible. At this time, among the Qin dynasty crowd, King Yu and King Li were all there. They looked at Tianshan mountain, which was connected to the sky in the distance. At this time, abnormal voices appeared on Tianshan mountain, and they didn't know if it would be their chance. The bells from Emperor Donghang and Ye Kang's relics were signs of Donghang's luck. At this time, another group of people came over twinkling. They came to the strong side of the Qin dynasty. They are Donghazong people. The head is Madame Yu Xiu. Around him, they were the peerless Tianzhao Lu Nanshan and Hua Kangking. Madam and brother Lu have also arrived. King Yu nodded at Mrs. Yu Xiu, and Mrs. Dingwa Zongzu was considered an elder. How do you feel? Madame Yu Xiu asked. Even 1,000 miles away, you can still feel the faint coercion in the Tianshan mountains. No wonder that these years, there are no strong people in Shucheng, and the monks of the Qiankyu temple have good endurance. King Yu laughed. Can you feel it? Madame Yu Xiu asked Hua Kangking. It feels very weak, Hua Kangking said softly, and Madame Yu Xiu nodded slightly, still the same as before. At this point, someone came to King Yu's side and said a few words. King Yu's eyes bulged. The academy and the thatched hut came to Shucheng and came together. Mom, an old friend has arrived, I will visit. King Yu said, then turned and left. Many people looked at King Yu. When the old friend arrived, was that his hut? Academy and thatched huts really came together. Today, the Qin dynasty has officially waged war against the academy. Before the battlefield, it existed in the ancient realms. However, if the outside world really meets, the Qin dynasty may start directly, so naturally cannot be taken lightly. The two armies met for the first time after the declaration of war. In the city of Shu, many people came to watch. King Yu glanced at the academy. This time, the 5 academies descended the mountain, and all the disciples in the hut, Jujhui and Jiu Dongyu all arrived. Many eyes stared at Jujhui and Jiu Dongyu. Was this the first time a Kotang disciple had appeared in this place outside of Shushan? The second disciple of the hut is very beautiful. One marveled at Jujhui's beautiful heart. A slender figure, slender beautiful legs, beautiful eyes with a shallow smile, but still gives people a feeling of arrogance. It is hard to imagine a fairy-like character, once appeared dominantly in Choge city, directly bombarded the gates of Dongqin Academy. The 3 disciples, Jiu Dongyu, are incomparable, and they look like scholars, but they have sharp feelings. The 4 disciples and 5 disciples all felt trivial, like cynicism. The 6 disciples were really also a very beautiful, slim and young girl. The 7 disciples were fat and very conspicuous. Ye Fusion's 8 disciples, handsome and outstanding, were recognized at a glance. In addition, the one-handed leafless dust, the Willow King's son Liu Feiyang and Liu Shenyang's daughter were all there. There is also the rest of his life, Liu Langxiu, and the party appears together. It is very extraordinary. That's all for the disciples, except for the sword master. Many people quietly said. King Yu's heart moved slightly. If he can do it, this time he will have a chance to make curry. However, it was very difficult to leave everyone in the hut to fight. Should the thatched hut give me some of them for the Qin dynasty? King Yu couldn't help but laugh with the cold eyes of Liu Shenyu and his brothers. They are here. You have to take them to get them, Jujhui said with a smile, but his tone was cold and proud. I really want to give it a try, King Yu said with a smile, his body blooming faintly. In the distance, shadows flickered. These people wore clear robes with sharp breadths on their bodies. They lined up and surrounded the people from the Qin dynasty. I saw a young man stepped out of the crowd, then came to them in front of Zhu Hui and bowed. Mosi has seen all the masters and uncles. Mosi. Many people stared at the young man's shadow. The Sacred Sword Mountain's first disciple, who entered the Sacred Sword Mountain in the year when the Sacred Sword Mountain was founded, was the Sacred Sword Mountain's first disciple. The Hut students, of course, were all his uncles, though there might be some uncles who were better than him. Brother is here, Zhu Hui asked. Master instructed us to come and meet uncle. If there is something, he can come at any time. Mosi said. Zhu Gehui nodded, and glanced at King Yu. This is the land of the western region, the site of the sword. King Yu looked at the people in front of him, his breath mingled, and seemed to know that it was impossible to deal with the thatched hut. Ye Fusion. At this time, King Li suddenly called out. Ye Fusion looked up and looked at King Li. Are you going to Tianshan? King Li's eyes fell on Ye Fusion, and Ye Fusion gave him a cold look and ignored him. I thought you would always cringe in the ancient world of the desert. Now that you're out, you're all set. King Li smiled, and then the people of the Qin dynasty turned and listened to King Yu say, the previous conditions still apply. But those who can kill Ye Fusion are protected by the Qin dynasty and are given the position of a horse. Everyone watched the Qin dynasty's strong people leave, and the war was different, and the killing intent was not hidden. Chapter 344, Someone in Tianshan. At this time the Tianshan bell rang, and the strongest in the eastern wasteland was about to enter Tianshan. King Yu's words are to bury a disaster for Ye Fusion. The eastern region is huge. After entering Tianshan, which can guarantee that there is no ambition, he wants to use Ye Fusion's orders to enter the Qin dynasty. There are many practitioners in the eastern wasteland, and they exist in all realms, but not everyone has the talent and wealth to enter the peak army, let alone marry the princess of the Qin dynasty. If we really seize such an opportunity, we will definitely be able to complete the jump, even if there is a big risk. The speculation called the human heart is unpredictable in the world. No one knows what will happen to Tianshan and what will be encountered. What King Yu left behind can be described as malicious intent, which is also the consistent style of the Qin dynasty. But the hut couldn't be like them. Ye Fusion looked at the back of King Yu and King Li. His eyes also contained the idea of killing. If he had the chance, he would show no mercy. The endless figures saw the meeting of the two major powers, and they understood that if the Qin dynasty had the confidence to destroy the academies, it would definitely be polite. Let's go, Zhu Gehui said. People nodded, and then a group of people walked in the void, towards the first mountain in the distance. Soon, the strong people gathered in Shucheng departed one after another. I don't know how many strong people are along the way, such as an army of terror practitioners. In the void, the black dragon whistled. Zhu Hui and Jiu Dongliu and the others stood behind the black dragon. However, as they continued to approach the Tianshan mountains, the black dragon actually made a low dragon groan and flew downwards. Jiu Dongliu looked at Tianshan, who was moving forward, without any surprises. Of course, he also felt that Tianshan's coercion was becoming more and more intense, with the power of evil forces constantly attacking and influencing people's will. Suddenly there was snow in the Tianshan mountains, and the sky became a little colder, and snowflakes continued to fall. The black dragon fell and arrived at the foot of the Tianshan mountains. Many people have arrived here. Among the white snowflakes, all the silhouettes are fleeting. What is the level of the monster at that time? Luo Fan whispered softly. He also felt the invasion of evil intent. Not only that, when standing at the feet of Tianshan, he has a delusion, like the whole of Tianshan. Should suppress him forever. Is this the emperor's will? In the ancient books of the dark period hundreds of years ago, there were sages, and they were swallowed by the magic bird. It can be seen that the magic bird must be a sage. Jiu Dongliu said. Under this coercion, our realm is afraid that there is no hope of ascending. Zhu Hui whispered. To go to Tianshan mountain, both need to be repaired to a strange height, higher than this year's magic bird and hundreds of years ago in the east. The Phoenix Emperor had to be lowered and was slower in perception, unable to sense the mood. This kind of artistic conception is not a real existence, otherwise weak people will not be able to step over it. The artistic conception seems to be fused with the Tianshan mountains, and the stronger the person is, the more they will be able to see it. Therefore, he would feel nothing. Tianshan has a straight mountain road, which looks like the outline of the sky, and it is a path that was opened by the pilgrimage for generations before the appearance of the magic bird. At this time, there was a group of people walking towards the road. This group of people were wearing robes, their hands were folded together, and there was Brahma's spit in their mouths. There seemed to be a holy glint on it. The Buddha that Ye Fusion has seen is among them. Obviously, this is the strong one of the Kyankyu temple. The Buddha Heart Sutra has the ability to resist demons, and Tianshan rings the bell. If anyone can step on Tianshan, it is most likely the monk from the Kyankyu temple. Many people secretly said that the people who came the most were the people around Tianshan and power. Kyankyu temple was a sacred place in their minds. A series of figures flashed, and then they stepped forward, and they were actually the strongest of the Daezong. Ye Fusion looked at Tianshan, but couldn't see the end, as if he was one with Tian. Although he is not high level, he also feels the coercion from Tianshan, and there are thoughts that invade his mind, disturbing his thoughts, and it is necessary that the climbing process will continue to strengthen. Under such circumstances, it is hard to imagine climbing to Tianshan. No, if it wasn't for the bell on Tianshan mountain, the people of the eastern wasteland believed that it was the emperor's call and would never come together. After all, countless previous generations had tried it. At this time, people continued to set foot on the mountain. You can't wake up, keep watching what we do. At this time, Mosi turned around and glanced not far away, where the people of Fuyun Janzong and Kotang appeared with the people of Dosheng Mountain, which naturally caused Fuyun Janzong's attention. The Lord of the Cloud Sword sect came personally, and he glanced at Ye Wachan, saying, I also received the Swordsman Academy school from the Fly Cloud Sword. The Academy's gaze fell on the other side, but Juj Hui smiled and glanced at each other, and said, I don't know how to meet when I am old. This is a place in the western region. Too much talk. I can't go back. The Lord of the Cloud Sword sect looked threatened. Joke. He snorted coldly, did not argue with Juj Hui, and led the people of Fuyun Janzong to climb the mountain. Even though it was a land in the western region, a sword master might be there. They were weak, but he asked the other party that he could not leave him. The Lord of the Sovereign Cloud and Cloud King, not to mention, the Qing dynasty and Donghazong are also here. If the cottage really dares to act, it is naturally impossible for the two forces to stand up. Jie Song and Chiao beside him all glanced at the hut indifferently. Ye Fusion stood on the spot, and immediately found that the people of Fuyun Janzong in the Qing dynasty, Donghazong, and the suspended King Palace were gathered together. These two armies clearly stated their alliance with the Qing dynasty in the Qing Palace. Although Dao Sheng has not dared to attack the academy and the lodge, but now it is necessary to follow the Qing dynasty's steps, otherwise the lodge will find them after, and it will be pitiful. Let's go up and take a look, Zhu Gehui said, just as he stepped out. Well, a bell rang from Tianshan Mountain, turning it into a wave of terror. The snow fluttered and swept wildly, many people closing their eyes. This sound is like the sound of the road, suppressing Tianshan and flattening everything. Among those who climbed the mountain, when the bell rang, they felt that there was a huge bell in the sky, which was as big as a mountain in the sky, trembling in their bodies. They shuddered, some people groaned, and some people vomited blood straight from the mountain. They were shaken back directly, and a loud sound came out, and their bodies were shaken back at the foot of the mountain and slid on the snow. Bang, bang. In the void, a person who previously descended from the sky, fell viciously to the ground, constantly spitting blood, and only felt that his heart's veins were broken. Kotang sighed. Footsteps. Second teacher stopped, snorted, bleeding from the corner of his mouth. The same goes for the three brothers. His body shook violently. When Juj Hui was injured, his eyes were sharp and he looked directly at Tianshan. Zua and Luo Fan were all injured by the earthquake, not only them, but also the princely ranks of the princely ranks such as the mountain head of the Bailey Academy and Book. Second master, brother. Ye Fusion's eyes froze, and he looked at the scene in shock. The bell rang, and the endless vast space, I don't know how many people were injured. After being shocked and injured, the stronger he became, the more he seemed to be injured. Although Ye Fusion felt a terrible coercion in his body, it was not so strong, but he felt that his body was very heavy, as if an invisible power of desire had penetrated him. The snowflakes were still falling, and the vast atmosphere of the atmosphere was suppressed for a moment, and the bell rang, so terrible that all the big men in the eastern wasteland were injured. Is this really the Emperor's summons? What happened to Tianshan and why did the bell ring? In the desolate place, many people looked at Tianshan. Can the intransportable mountain really climb? Follow their eyes, the land that fills the sky, the peak of the Tianshan Mountains. Snowflakes continued to fall, especially at the peak of the Tianshan Mountains. At this moment, there was a figure standing quietly at the top of the mountain. If anyone saw this scene, they would be extremely shocked. One has reached the peak of Tianshan Mountain. In the vast white snow, the figure looked very lonely. He picked up the jug, took a sip of the wine, and then dropped the wine on the snow. This world seems to be the one and only. Chapter 345, Tianshan. Under Tianshan Mountain, Zhu Hui looked at Tianshan Mountain, and he could feel that after the bell rang, the coercion on Tianshan Mountain seemed to be getting stronger. Perhaps this Tianshan has a spirit, and the will of the two emperors is watching over, deliberately not letting the prince set foot. Zhu Hui said. Tianshan somehow rang the bell, pressing Wang Hu. If you really have the will of the two emperors, you don't need to do it. Jiu Dongyu also looked up and whispered. Who is the Eastern Phoenix Emperor, the god of the Eastern Divine Kingdom, and why care about the mountaineering world? It was like a trip. Zuye and Luo Fan also felt depressed, knowing that there was no hope of climbing. Little lion, ex-singer girl, little master, you can only go alone. Luo Fan said. Ye Fusion nodded gently, looking at the towering Tianshan Mountains. Snowflakes fell, and many people were stained with frost. Not only did the Kotang disciples realize that some seniors from the academy also ordered their descendants. Similarly, in the Qin dynasty, Qin Yu and others said to Qin Li, Tianshan can only ascend alone. Yes, father. Qin Li nodded. Don't hold your hand if you have the chance. Qin Yu flashed a cold look in Qin Yu's eyes. Qin Ju's death, so far no chance to retaliate, was killed in vain by Jiu Dongyu. Understand. Qin Li looked indifferent. On the side, Dong Hazong, Madame Yusio looked at King Kangking next to her, and said softly, King, will you go? King Kangking nodded, she wanted to look at Tianshan. Lu Nanshan looked at her with a gentle gaze. She stretched out her hand as if to touch her pure and immaculate face, but she seemed to be afraid of blasphemy. His hand only touched King Kangking's ear here, gently. Path, if in danger, get off. Okay, King Kangking replied. Take care of Kangking. Lu Nanshan instructed the disciples of Donghuazong, and the disciples of Donghuazong nodded. It was no coincidence that Lu Nanshan had to be the next Dongzong suzerain, and King Kangking would be the beggar's wife. Although Qianshan Mu was also very talented, he still had some gaps with Lu Nanshan. The people of King Kangking and Dong Hazong stepped out, and Madame Yusio whispered, it is said that the ancient Tianshan mountain can only be climbed by people who are pure in mind. King is pure in her heart. When all evil does not attack, if anyone can attack, in Tianshan, I believe Kangking can surpass the people in Qiankyu Temple. I believe too. Lu Nanshan smiled at his pure and tidy back, wishing he could see the scenery on Tianshan Mountain. At this time, on the mountain road, Jiu Jiku turned his head and looked at the sovereign Taoism sovereign who was shaken by the mountain. I saw the mountain sovereign nodded at him and said, only you can plant demons in others, how can Tianshan block it? You, rest assured, the emperor's bell rings, it is a call for you. Jiu Jiku looked at the master, can he do it? Even if he was a demonic figure with talent in the eastern wasteland, he still didn't have the absolute confidence in the Tianshan face that the emperor had once achieved. Brother, you will. Which Jiu Bu said with a smile. Dao Zi Jiu Q nodded, his eyes became firm, he turned around and continued walking up the mountain. The Buddha also glanced down at the foot of the mountain. There was a monk at the foot of the mountain who folded his arms and shouted Brahman. He made the same motion and turned around to climb the mountain. Chiao is still in the character of the swordsman Fuyun Janzong Jufeng in Tianzhou, marching towards the Tianshan Mountains, the 7 peaks of Fuyun Janzong, and the 7th peak alone. The 7th peak of Janzi Ye is dust-free, has been driven away by the suzerain, and is now beside Ye Fusion. Wang Wezong, Shan Wangdian, Ji family and other powerful people all climbed the mountain in succession. There were already people speeding on the mountain road, but not many people were chasing after him. If Tianshan is very easy to climb, you don't have to wait until today. Let's go up the mountain. Ye Fusion said, and then the group set off. People from thatched huts, academies, and Sword Mountain set foot on Tianshan Mountain. Follow you. Zhu Hui said to Zhu Ye Luo Fan. The two of them understood Sister Ye's meaning and followed Ye Fusion behind them. Although they gave up climbing, they also had to prevent the Qin dynasty and other forces from sending the prince to the mountain. When they were unable to climb, so were the princes of the Qin dynasty. On the mountain road, there are people everywhere. Ye Fusion felt a faint coercion from top to bottom, and there was an evil desire that seemed to affect him. This is an invisible spiritual will, but it feels like there is no place. Not here. Not far from Ye Fusion, he saw Wang Wezong's people, but unfortunately he did not see Siyu, but the Virgin Chu Yun came. Fairy brother is good. Ye Fusion met his acquaintance, disciple Xiaoyuju, and Yunji, sister of Waji. Yunru smiled and looked at Ye Fuxian. This man is very sweet. He also didn't say anything to Ye Fuxian. Now the situation in the eastern wasteland is a little smoother, and Wang Wezong doesn't want to fall into any power for now. The mountain road is very wide and the mighty strong people continue to climb. The snow on Tianshan Mountain was constantly falling, with a hint of coolness. The entire Tianshan Mountain was gradually covered with a layer of silver and white clothes. Someone who goes up fast, someone slow. Ye Fuxian, they keep a certain speed, not in a hurry. They can feel that when they go up, the invisible pressure and evil invasion gradually turn strong. Some of the strong people in the heavens felt the pressure. How tall is Tianshan? Ye Fuxian asked Du Ming, a Sword Saint Mountain student next to him. Du Ming was Mo Si's disciple, and was considered the third generation of Dosheng Mountain. It was older and more advanced than Ye Fuxian. Ye Fuxian Senior's shout and the thatched hut student ancestor made them helpless. No one has climbed to the top of Tianshan Mountain for many years. I don't know how high it is. Some people say how high the sky is. How high is Tianshan Mountain? It is difficult to climb the Tianshan Mountain as high as the sky. Du Ming replied. Ye Fuxian was speechless. When he climbed Mount Huashan, he could see the approximate height of Mount Huashan at the foot of the mountain. Although Tianshan Mountain can guard the sky, he doesn't know how high it is. Let's speed up a little, Ye Fuxian said, and everyone's footsteps quickened. As they continued to ascend, Ye Fuxian heard a low, buzzing sound beside him, and he turned to look at the black wind carved with wings spread out beside him, and said, "What is it?" Haifengdiao lowered his head and his limbs fell on the mountain road. You can do it. Ye Fuxian stroked Haifengdiao's forehead. Haifengdiao's eyes became sharper, and he nodded vigorously, and continued to follow Ye Fuxian up. As they rose higher, they gradually penetrated into the belly of the mountain. There was a majestic giant peak floating out, faintly surrounding them in the belly of the mountain. Ye Fuxian only felt that his heartbeat was getting faster, as if a beautiful rhythm was emerging. The evil spirit gradually became stronger, and so Haifengdiao's eyes glowed a terrifying red, staring ahead. There, many people stopped. Ye Fuxian and others stepped forward, and they saw a steep uphill gorge in front of them. On the sides of the mountain walls, there were patterns of magical birds engraved. It was a black penguin, its fur and claws dark and sharp, as if from a purifying fire. Every pattern seems to jump out of the mountain wall. On the mountain road, there are many corpses, and even some people's bodies are very sad and can't bear to look. Ye Fuxian only glanced at the mountain wall, as if he felt a magic bird flying towards his head. He immediately looked away and did not see the mountain wall. At this time, in the middle of the mountain wall, Buddha and the people from Kyangkyu temple were there. The light of the Buddha was bright, and the demon did not attack, as if there were invisible magic birds moving towards them, but they were blocked by the light of the Buddha. Kyangkyu Temple is the most promising place to climb Tianshan. Many people secretly looked at the scene. Qing Dynasty, Qing Li, stepped forward from the strong. They carried out the Dragon Emperor's decree. Longyan shook the sky and walked with the body of a real dragon. Through this space, they did not leave, but looked back at Ye Fuxian. Side then, the Dezongzong people also stepped forward. Each one shows its magic. At this time, a quiet beautiful figure emerged from the crowd. Many eyes looked at her. King Kangking, the meaning of the three great beauties in the East Wasteland, she will go alone. Miss Qian Shenmu and many other Donghazong disciples approached. No problem, King Kangking said softly, as if there was a beating of notes on her body. A layer of holy glistening covered her body, but the melody spread. King Kangking moved forward. The phantom image of the evil demon bird seemed to pass through him, as if avoiding his body. This is worthy of Donghazong, King Li praised. Uncle, should we send you? Du Ming said. Okay. Ye Fuxian nodded calmly, making the people of Dosheng Mountain stunned. All the uncles and ancestors were all experts in thatched huts. Du Ming was just being rude. Not the sword array. Du Ming started. The disciples of the sacred mountain of the sword stood together. The cloth of the sword array, the sword light turned into a light curtain, surrounding everyone. Students of the lodge ascend this way. An ironic voice came, and Ye Fuxian turned around and saw Chiao and Fuyun Janzong standing there. Then they gathered their swords and turned them into a dazzling sword light, piercing straight into the void and facing forward. While walking, I passed through the space in an instant and reached the other end of the mountain wall. I didn't forget to look back at Ye Fuxian and look at them provocatively. Many people looked strangely at Ye Fuxian's eyes. They were also looking forward to the grass hut disciples, although they wouldn't have thought that the grass hut disciples couldn't move forward, but in this case, it was still unavoidable. Hated, Yi Shaoxi said. It seems so. Ye Fuxian nodded. My sister and I went and gave it to you. Ye Shaoxi patted Ye Fusion's shoulder. Ye Fusion looked at him with a look. Didn't the brother shoot? What can brother do? You don't have to bother with brother. Ye Shaoxi said to Du Ming, let's go. Okay. Du Ming nodded, escorting everyone with a sword array, and through this space, he left Ye Fusion alone and took the black wind carving with him. Is this really good for you? Ye Fusion said depressedly, stepping forward. Many people looked at Ye Fusion, and then saw Ye Fusion walking to the road between the mountain walls. For a time, the pattern on the mountain wall seemed to come alive, and went madly to Ye Fusion's body. Seeing Ye Fusion enter like this, countless eyes froze there, King Li, Chiao and others narrowed. Is this person trying to die? The terrifying ghost owl image descended directly on Ye Fusion's body, as if rushing into his body. Many people narrowed their eyes. Someone died like this before. Exaggerating. At this time, they heard Ye Fusion's voice come out, and then were surprised to find that Ye Fusion was walking forward step by step, as if not affected at all. Chapter 346, Have a question for you. This. On the mountain road, Ye Fusion stepped forward, walking on the field leisurely, imitating the will of the magic bird between the walls of Fortune, which could not affect him. The terrible evil intent went madly towards Ye Fusion, but saw him fluttering in the white clothes, black hair flying. The prince will bloom, as if shrouded in a layer of holy light. All evil will not attack. Many people have a strange view. Is Ye Fusion's will so strong? Could it be that he was less affected due to his low level? However, Ye Fusion was so strong on the mountain road that it was enough to crush any previous doubts. The 7 cottage disciples, Ye Shaoxi, and the Dao Shengshan people left him, apparently also completely believing him. This is really a group of arrogant people who have never tried it, so they believe Ye Fusion can do it. The other Chiao and Yun sect people had turned into Jiangwang, and when they saw Ye Fusion's actions, Chiao's face couldn't help but look a little ugly. It's really a face. He hasn't entered the sky yet. He should have the advantage of the lower realms. Chiao opened his eyes to the changing appearance of the people around him. In the crowd of Wang Wezong, Chu Yunmei's eyes saw Ye Fusion stepping forward, and he walked forward. Virgin, someone shouted. I will try. Chu Yun's body covered his body with a dazzling brilliance, and then his body flickered, as if many figures were turned into an instant. When the magic birds attack, the ghosts will then break apart, but find that the body is still moving forward. The fairy is walking. If it dances, it will shock many people. The 3 beauties who are conking at the front and Chu Yan at the back, and the east wasteland simply don't look good at all. Then people saw the first one pass by one after another, and they also joined hands. There was always a strong person passing through this path, and death was rare. The person at the front was too fast, but many people killed their lives. On the mountain road, the people from Qiangqiu Temple and Tao Dezong had already departed. King Li saw Ye Fusion pass the cold mang in his eyes, and waited for Chu Yan to come, and asked, Oh, are you okay? It doesn't matter. Chu Yan shook his head gently. With me? King Li asked. I will wait with brothers and sisters, let's go first. Chu Yan's voice is gentle, Chu Chu's touching eyes make people pity. Okay. King Li nodded, and then continued with the Qin dynasty and Dong Hazong. Ye Fusion, they also stepped forward. People from forces like Fuyun Janzong and Zuawangdian were nearby. Many people in the back came one after another. When they see the figures in front, they always feel that they may be on the mountain road in Tianshan. Not so quiet. Both sides have started a war. Liu Shenyu, Liu Feiyang, and Ye Wuchen and the people of the Qin dynasty can be described as enemies. The grudge between the academy and the Qin dynasty, the Kotang sacred mountain and the Fuyun sword. Zong's grudge, thatched hut and suspended king's palace. These people were able to endure, but they had incredible endurance. The mountain road became more and more rough. Everyone gradually entered the Tianshan interior. White snow flew across the Tianshan mountains. The vision was no longer visible beyond the mountains. They looked at the peak that reached the sky. It's just that step by step, I don't know how long it will take to reach. The snow is getting deeper and thicker, and everyone's body is gradually covered with a layer of frost. Some people are melting the frost with the aura of the fire, and they feel a little chill. Not only that, the evil will become stronger and stronger, as if it penetrated from the mountain wall of Tianshan Mountain, affecting them everywhere. Haifindia always followed Ye Fusion's footsteps, his paws stuck to the ground step by step, those sharp eyes glowed red, and his head fell. Ye Fusion replanted a spiritual imprint in his mind. It contains a ray of imperial meaning, which allows it to dispel the meaning of fear and last forever. Gradually, some people began to give up, and more, they felt that if they continued to ascend, they would go into chaos, completely controlled by that evil will, and be reduced to puppets. Those who still insist are those who have a strong will. They followed the steps of the upper powers and followed them. If something did happen, these people would be there, and the impact would be much less. And they can learn from their actions. Time passed day by day. The people of Tianshan have been walking in Tianshan for 7 days, they don't know where they are now. At the foot of the Tianshan mountains, the strong are still here, and there are people who cannot continue to descend the mountain. In the vast snowflakes, all of them were silhouetted in an instant. At the foot of this mountain, more than half of the strong people in the eastern wasteland came. The bell doesn't ring anymore, otherwise I'm afraid I can't stay at the foot of the mountain anymore. Zhu Hui stood there quietly. Mimu looked at Tianshan. Are you saying that Shoshiri will be the person the teacher wants to find? At this time, Zhu Hui said softly, only a few students in Kotang could understand this sentence. Jiu Dongyu looked up at the huge snow-covered mountains. He and his masters Dao Sheng and Zhu Hui were the ones who knew the ideals of the master the most. But this ideal is too big, even if the talent of the cottage is very talented, it is impossible to do it, so far they don't know where they can go. Now only the eastern lands have given them resistance. I don't know, Jiu Dongyu said softly. When he heard Ye Fusion's words in the ancient world, he went to the Kangye kingdom without any hesitation. In Tianshan, I don't know if the young master can get something. Zhu Hui laughed. There is a legend of 2 emperors in the eastern wasteland. If the young master could make a difference to Tianshan, his master would be very happy if he found out. But where is the old man hiding now? At first, he kidnapped himself, and did not teach him well. Instead, he threw the hut to him, and he walked away to enjoy Kung Fu, the stinky old man. Ellipsis. On Tianshan mountain, the black wind eagle stopped again, its legs trembled, and the feathers on its wings stood on end. Ahead, there are many imprints on the mountain walls, Dawn-claw imprints, thunder and flame traces, and scorched fire marks, and all of them are filled with a terrifying atmosphere. The emperor pressed where the magic bird was fighting. They felt that their bodies became extremely heavy, and an invisible force was pressing on them. There were black crows flying between the mountain walls, their eyes were panting, and sometimes they glowed red. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone seemed to be able to hear the sound of their own heartbeat, louder and louder. Pressed. Ye Fusion glanced at black wind carving, and the spiritual imprint embedded in black wind carving's mind released a strong coercion. He saw that black wind carving's eyes became very strange, as if revealing addiction. The bloodlight has a tendency to run away. Ah! A painful roar came out, and many people trembled, turned their heads, and saw a strong man in the heavenly realm unable to suppress the evil desire in his body. His eyes were irritated with the terrible red monster. Mang, his palm turned into a terrifying golden blade, stabbing straight into the heart of the person beside him. The blood bloomed on the white snow, and when they saw the red blood, the eyes of many people could no longer suppress the evil light. They all screamed, and the wild explosions wildly began to get out of their control. Even the people of the top forces have undulations, and it is difficult to suppress the evil thoughts accumulated in the body. For a time, those people were out of control and began to attack madly. Many people headed for Hua Kangking, Chu Yan, and Qin Mengruo. These 3 were the 3 beauties of the eastern wasteland, and they easily aroused evil thoughts in others. Especially the Mochizuki fairies, many people are crazy about them. Kill them. King Li indifferently ordered, and suddenly the people of the Qin dynasty and Donghazong shot, and the scene became chaotic instantly. Blood flowed with snowflakes in the void, causing the evil thoughts of more people, even Liu Feiyang and Liu Shenyu. Their eyes were shining red, staring coldly at King Li. They hated King Li, and these negative emotions can be easily stimulated, and therefore influenced by evil thoughts. When Hua Kangking saw this step forward, she walked into the crowd, then sat cross-legged, and a piano soul appeared. He hit the piano and saw her pretty and neat face like a fairy. The sound of the piano is very pure, as if it can purify people's hearts. Just for a moment, the world seems silent, all kinds of evil thoughts are emitted by the sound of the piano. Those who rushed to approach it stopped and stood in their original place. In front of him, the Buddha, who was walking alone, like the people of the Kyangkyu temple, looked back, and the person with the purest mind could be protected from evil thoughts. Hua Kangking is probably such a person. With the melodious and beautiful sound of the piano coming out continuously, the red on in the eyes of many people is under control, but the battle is still going on, and many people have not completely fled. King Li looked away. He looked at the Liu Feiyang and Liu Shenyu brothers and sisters. When they saw the red people in their eyes, he smiled and said, "Want to kill me?" In their eyes, the killing was intense. The Kunking girl is pure and kind, but like this waste is influenced by evil thoughts, let them survive on their own. Why save them? King Li glanced at Hua Kunking with a smile. Hearts are evil, so why save them? Chiao also said. I have a question to ask you. Ye Fusion walked forward. At this moment, the space was a bit chaotic. King Li was in Wang Wezong's direction. What is the problem? King Li asked with a sneer. Ye Fusion came to King Li and stopped, with a bright smile, and said, Will someone like you repent before you die? King Li raised an eyebrow, his eyes became sharp, looking at Ye Fusion. At this moment, Ye Fusion suddenly exploded into an extremely violent momentum in his body, turning his body into a forward-facing residual image. Boom! The momentum of King Li's body erupted in an instant, and then he saw a very heavy long stick descending from the sky with thousands of pounds of power, sweeping the Cape rod, and the dragon groaned. With one stick, it seems to split everything. Chapter 347, One Way Forward. King Li's face changed greatly, and his body also had a real dragon howl. His arm seemed to have turned into a dragon's arm, and he stopped at the long stick. Along the way, he had thought of looking for an opportunity to kill Ye Fusion and others, but he didn't expect Ye Fusion to dare to attack him, and he broke out. Bang! There was a loud bang, and the long stick fell. King Li shuddered, his clothes shattered in his arms, and he was torn on one knee. Everyone froze, no response. Ye Fusion said with a smile, he just fell and seemed to be a person. This is King Li's life. Good man. At this moment, in King Li's arms, a terrifying dragon-shaped armor appeared with a terrifying luster. It seemed to be a magic weapon. Without this weapon to protect the arm, Ye Fusion's sudden violent punch, I am afraid that both hands are wiped on the spot. It is too sudden, and the shot is thunder, and there is no mercy at all. Boom! The situation whistled and the long stick danced. The airflow in the space frantically flowed. Fusion's vines rolled wildly and locked onto King Li's body. Stop it! The people of the Qin and Donghazong dynasties all reacted, and all the breaths were released violently, rushing towards Ye Fusion, and at the same time, there was a spinning spell, killing Ye Fusion. Ye Fusion was still hesitating, his eyes were extremely cold, and his ruthless claws exploded again, as if the boundless pressure between heaven and earth was about King Li's bombardment. King Li also knew that he had lost his chance. Now the urgent task is to save his life. His body released a dazzling luster, which was a dragon armor, which turned into a real dragon that roared and rushed out. A true dragon hovers above his head, protecting him, and his arms are raised and protected. Bang! There was another loud crackling sound, sand and gravel flying. King Li's body was shaken into the mountain, a hole appeared in the mountain road, he snorted, spitting out blood. Even if there was a magic body defense weapon, it was still injured. At this time, a real dragon whistled and killed. Ye Fusion knew that there was nothing he could do. When the long stick exploded, he stepped back and went over there. Wang's son. The people of the Qin dynasty surrounded King Li one after another. King Li only felt a tremor in his body. He started his training, coiled his veins, and exploded into a dragon. Then he took a deep breath, calmed the violent fluctuations in his body, and then slowly stood up and stared at Ye Fusion coldly, killing the sky. Life is so big. Ye Fusion smiled, he smiled lightly, the clouds were light, the wind was light, and there was no previous anger. Many people looked at the smile on his face, speechless. Your life, I am afraid it will not be that big. King Li's eyes were filled with the idea of killing, and then he said, kill him. The Qin dynasty's power stepped forward and killed Ye Fusion. The disciples from the academy also stepped forward. After all, the academy and the thatched cottage belonged to the same family. Facing the Qin dynasty, they naturally had to stand together. Otherwise, if the Qin dynasty really kills Ye Fusion, they can also go back and kill them. Many people have died in the battlefields of the ancient world. The people from Donghazong also approached, and the disciples of the Sword Saint Mountain approached them. For a while, the situation moved, and the war was about to begin. Many people around are holding their breath, and now the peak forces are already at war. Above Tianshan, will this grudge finally flare up? Hua King Kunken stopped. Maimo saw the war that was about to start. Chu Yunmei's eyes fell on Ye Fusion, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Wang Zongzong naturally will not get involved. What is the grievance between the Qin dynasty and the thatched hut? What is the involvement of the Sword Holy Mountain? At this time, Fuyun Janzong Chiao said, his eyes were sharp, and he looked at the people from Sword Holy Mountain. Du Ming frowned, his brows like a knife, brushing Chiao, what are you doing? Should the academy give me Ye Yanchen, the villain Fuyun Janzong? Chiao said with a smile, and Ye Fusion glanced at the others indifferently. Chiao naturally understood that he could not give. This sentence is just an excuse to interfere in this war. Snowflakes kept falling, and this space was full of swords. When Big Brother goes to Fuyun Janzong, why doesn't he always learn a lesson? Yi Shaoxi said. Ye Fusion glanced at the crowd. The people in King Wang's temple seemed to be staring at him. Although he didn't reveal his position, he had no doubt that if the time came, the people in King Wang's temple would most likely take pictures. In terms of numbers, they occupy the weaker side. Ye Fusion's body slowly emptied the coercion of the Tianshan mountains. In his body, the magic of the wind gathered, the golden wings of the golden winged Daping bloomed, and the will of the prince. Everyone's eyes were on him. What did this man want to do? No need to fight, King Li is my business. Ye Fusion said suddenly, then his body quickly emptied, rolled into the void, shaken, as if he wanted to climb to the top of Tianshan mountain. Ye Fusion in the void looked like a huge bird, turning into a flash of lightning. Many people saw this scene stupidly, apparently not expecting that Ye Fusion didn't fight, but went straight away and left everyone behind. Want to run away now? King Li glanced at the vacant figure and said, chasing. The words fell, and every figure emptied, like a dragon flying into the sky, chasing Ye Fusion. Climb up the mountain. Yi Shaoxi's figure flashed, and strong people from all sides continued to march towards Tianshan, much faster than before. The battle that was about to break out was ended by Ye Fusion's sudden departure. Go. The people of Fuyun Janzong and Mount Dosheng accelerated their journey up the mountain, only to see Ye Fusion's body descend directly on the boulder on Tianshan mountain across a great distance, and then continued to move forward, as if he had ignored the mountain. Evil and coercion. Fei Yang, take care of the drowning fish. Ye Wachan said, his body whistling like a sword. I'll check it out, Chu Yan said, and also accelerated towards the mountain. Ye Fusion's body was galloping on the mountain road, and the speed was extremely fast. King Li and the Qin dynasty are behind him. Many of them are behind him. If it wasn't for the influence of Tianshan's coercion, the other party would have caught up with him. After all, the repair to be harmed. Although there are many strong people, he doesn't seem to care. At the time of the shot, he thought of various situations. The prince rushed to resist the emperor's coercion and intent, so that he can greatly reduce the pressure from Tianshan. The pressure on the mountain road increased, and there was still thunder in the snowflakes flying in front of him. Like a world of thunder, even the mountain walls and huge rocks are faintly shining with thunder. When Ye Fusion stepped into it, he felt a very strong thunder force. It seemed that he was walking around the will of thunder, and not only that, the evil would also become stronger. His pace slowed down unconsciously, moving forward step by step. Did you run away? Behind, King Li's figure came, and there was a faint dragon on his body. He was like a dragon, wearing dragon armor, and the strong people of the Qin dynasty around his body fought and put the pieces together. Thunder World. Ye Fusion didn't bother, because he decided to start with King Li. He never really wanted to run away. There is only one goal: to kill King Li. When he was in the Liu Kingdom, he saw what King Yuan did to Liu Shenyu, saw Liu Shenyu commit suicide. Ye Wachan was helpless, and King left Zhang crazy words, and he wanted to kill, but he was powerless at that time. King Liu will not kill, he can't help it. But now in Tianshan Mountain, the strongest person around King Li is only the sky, and the higher he goes, the stronger the pressure will be for the stronger person. He finally had a chance, not to mention that the two sides had already started a war. He didn't kill King Li would also kill him. What he was thinking about now was just a way of killing. Yi Shaoxi also arrived, also some Donghazong strong people and people from all walks of life entered this thunder world. Of course, many people can't afford to leave it. People who enter this world can't help slowing down without realizing the eyes of some people have started to shine again, even those who are quite talented. Chu Yan also entered this world of thunder. Looking back at the loneliness in the distance, he did not feel that Ye Fusion was in general, but felt a kind of determination from behind. Ye Wachan, the rest of his life, Lu Langxiu and others also arrived and walked in this space. If it feels hard to endure, don't force it anymore. Hua Kangking said to the people around her when she arrived. She naturally felt the pressure ahead. In front of Ye Fusion, there are several people in the Qiangqiu temple in Dezongzong. At this time, Jiu Biu, the mage of Dezongzong, stopped, and he was about to give up. Are you crazy? Ye Fusion ignored him, walked past him, and continued forward. King Li's face became ugly, and his own face would continue to be eroded. Of course, he understood how much pressure this space had. Ye Fuxian has moved forward. Some of the powerful Qin dynasties around him are already unstable. His eyes glowed red and his mind was strong. Can't drag on any longer, kill. Qin Li indifferently ordered that the people in the Qin dynasty suddenly increased their speed and whistled at Ye Fuxian. Their eyes were bloodthirsty and their killing thoughts were strong. Explosion. Seeing this scene, Yi Shaoxi's speed accelerated, and turned into a flash of lightning. After the first one came, it jumped straight on top of Qin Li's head. His body turned into an afterimage, and his hands stretched forward. At this moment, his hand even stretched out, directly swallowing the strong man who had killed Ye Fuxian in front. Kill him, Qin Li said indifferently. Several Qin dynasties stepped out, killing in the air. Yi Shaoxi seems to have eyes behind him. He lifted his legs and kicked back. His feet turned into a giant golden mountain, pressed down. The sky was filled with golden light, and a loud sound made the other party's voice suppressed. Return. Come back. Yi Shaoxi waved his hand, like a tentacle to pull back the person who killed Ye Fuxian. Ye Fuxian did not look back, as if he did not know the fight behind him. He continued to move forward. Qin Li was embarrassed and said coldly, "You deal with it." After all, he brought several people to chase after Ye Fuxian, and his group was surrounded by Yi Shaoxi. Chapter 348, Chance. Yi Shaoxi saw that someone wanted to pass Ye Fuxian and chased after him. His body flickered and he stood at the forefront. His body shone brightly. In the next moment, a giant tree grew wild. He looked like an incarnation. For the tree of God continued to spread around. What is even more frightening is that in addition to the emerald green color, Yi Shaoxi's sacred tree incarnation is faintly golden and sparkling, like an emperor. Imperial wine. Everyone turned their eyes and stared at the scene that appeared in front of them. This was the emperor vine, which was known as the emperor on the tree and had the strongest branching plant of branches. Obviously, the life soul of the 7 lodge disciples is the emperor's vine, and the life image is formed by the life soul. At this time, nature is blooming, and the properties of the wood and the metal aura between the heavens and the earth are eaten by the ancient vine. Spell wood attributes bloomed, bright golden vines covered the sky, and they quickly moved in the void, and then rolled towards the crowd that was chasing Ye Fuxian below. If the strong are close to their enemies, they don't dare to accept it, and turn to resist the spell attacks, and don't dare to continue to hunt Ye Fuxian. That's right. Yi Shaoxi smiled brightly, and at this moment, the battle lines formed by several strong people shot straight at him. Long Yin array, Dragon Desire on the strong people of Qin Dynasty resonance, Spear broke, Long Xiao is in the sky, and he wants to smash Yi Shaoxi's body straight from the center. Wow! The endless vines curled up frantically, turned into thousands of tentacles and rolled towards the crowd of assassins. The golden emperor flower bloomed, and the golden sharp petals twisted and blossomed, as if terrifying. Golden vortex. The dragon shadow roared above the stunning spear, destroying everything. The golden petals continued to burst and shatter, and the emperor flower seemed to be crushed under this terrible attack. However, the emperor flower seems to have a lot of weight. Flowers are grateful and open, never ending. The shadow of the dragon collapsed, and the strong people of the Qin dynasty were absent. However, the petals were still swallowed, and then exploded, turning into raindrops, and each raindrop turning into an indestructible golden blade. Their bodies exploded, but when they saw the golden vines rolling up behind them, they instantly blocked their retreat, and they could only attack with a rush. Well, the terrifying golden vine pierced the Qin dynasty's strong body, and then a scream came out. Retreat and fight. Someone screamed, realized the danger, and didn't dare to hate him anymore. There were several famous Kuntang disciples out here, and their combat power was just as terrifying. Common sense to gauge their strength. Little master, I can only help you get here. Yi Shaoxi looked back at Ye Fuxian in the distance. He naturally understands Ye Fuxian's intentions, and wants to borrow the privileges of Tianshan and Qin Li. Furthermore, several people from Fuyong Jianzhong came here, glanced at Yi Shaoxi, and then continued to follow. Then, one after another arrived and continued to move forward, chasing Ye Fuxian's direction. Ye Fuxian's steps became slower, the more advanced, the more difficult. Right now, too many people were left behind, and those who weren't steadfast would never get there. Currently, the world where this point of thunder shines is Ye Fuxian in front, Qin Li and others, and Donghua Zong, Fuyong Jianzhong, Chu Yan and several other Tianzhou characters. Behind them were Shuyun, Biatang Exinger, Yu Sheng, Ye Wuchen and the others. Everyone's distance grew closer as the people in front slowed down. Although the people behind also slowed down, the reduction was relatively smaller, so the distance was getting shorter. There were less than 50 people behind Ye Fuxian, and most of them were left behind. Where else can you go? King Li looked cold as Ye Fusion approached. He was still followed by two of them, and the others were either stopped by Yi Shaoxi or unable to support him. The two that were still with him today were extraordinary, they were both extraordinary figures of the Qin dynasty and had a higher level than him. At this time, Ye Fusion's steps stopped suddenly, he turned around, looked at King Li, and laughed, "If you want to kill me like this, you and I will fight each other." Idiot. King Li smiled sinisterly. Even though he asked himself that he was stronger than Ye Fusion, why did he have to fight against Ye Fusion when he had the absolute advantage? He is not a gentleman, killing Ye Fusion is his only goal. The people of Donghazong and Fuyun Janzong also came forward. There are 4 people in Donghazong at this time, and there is Hua Kangking behind them. There are 4 people in Fuyun Janzong, Chiao and the other 3 sword figures. Amazing genius. Chu Yan stood not far behind, watching the scene ahead. For the rest of their lives, Ye Wuchen, Biatang Exinger, Blackwind Carving, Dooming of Sword Mountain, and the other 2 strong men, followed by the 4 strong men on campus. There are people behind the Hanging King Temple. Coming here, the numbers on the 2 sides are gradually approaching, and they are the most talented people of the main forces. Kill. King Li opened his mouth coldly, his voice dropped, and the Qin dynasty on the left and right stepped out. True dragons swirl overhead. Qin dynasty royal figures are all dragons, this is their totem. A real dragon whistled and killed, rushing at Ye Fusion, the golden dragon claw wants to tear Ye Fusion's body. Ye Fusion held the 5 elemental scepter in his hand, the cape rod, the true dragon rod, and Jinpeng glittered, his physical body seemed to be indestructible, and his footsteps stepped together, and the power of heaven and earth gathered in one body. It was a golden dragon with extraordinary defense, knocking Ye Fusion down, and then the ice dragon breathed on him, and the ice meaning swept through the space, covering his body. Ye Fusion's body turned, the Wuxing stick swept again, and he used the power of the Wuxing stick to retreat. Qin dynasty's 2 strong men were much taller than him, and they were after him. King Li's figure also stepped forward and killed Ye Fusion. Yes. For the rest of his life, he stepped on the ground, his body rushed, Ye Wuchen held a sharp sword, looking forward like a sword. Yes. A sword light cut the snowflakes that fell between heaven and earth, cutting through the space, Ye Wuchen's steps stopped stiffly, his body twisted, and the sword came out. There seemed to be a silver flash across the void, one touch at a time. Chiao's figure appeared in front of him, looking at Ye Wuchen, "Today, clear the portal for Fuyun Janzong." Therefore, Chiao continued to step forward. Although the sword of the first peak of the Fuyun sect is not him but Lu's, but in the heaven realm, he is definitely the strongest talent at the first peak. If not in the first peak, he is confident that he can be a sword for any peak. Going to Ye Wuchen's body, Chiao came out with a sword. If the sword flies in the sky with a silver light, it contains thousands of changes and blocks all retreat. Ye Wuchen stared ahead, his eyes became strange, and at this moment, Chiao appeared a sword in his eyes. As a disciple of Fuyun Janzong, Chiao naturally knows what the sword of the 7th peak Fuyun Janzong has, and opened his eyes. He did not pay attention to the sword light in his eyes, the strong will suppress the invasion of the sword, forget the sword light, but only attack, so that Ye Wuchen's sword can't threaten him, so naturally there is no need to bother with the blade. Ye Wuchen's sword was cut, but a simple and unsophisticated sword seemed to cut through the world. This sword is like a road sword, which completely divides Chiao's sword technique into defensive lines, and then continues to attack. He is not as good as Chiao. To defeat Chiao, only attack and defense will die. In addition, several swords blocked several strong people in the sacred mountain of the sword. For a time, the sword lit up, as if they had destroyed the sacred mountain of the sword in Fuyun Janzong for a long time. An additional person from Sword Holy Mountain stood before the rest of his life. The academy disciples wanted to step forward to Ye Fusion's side, and the Donghazong people appeared, as if isolating the battlefield. In the battlefield between King Li and Ye Fusion retreated one after another, faced with the existence of King Li from the other 2 heavenly realms, they were more vicious and less fortunate. Qianshan Mu sat cross-legged, his piano sound had rang, covering the entire battlefield for a while. The piano-sounding spell turned into a spiritual attack and instantly penetrated the Sword Mountain disciples in the academy, affecting their battles. Biatang Exinger Mimu glanced at Ye Fusion's side, revealing a ray of concern, but the realm is not high, and the combat effectiveness is not always stronger than Ye Fusion, and he can't help. Mimu glanced at Qianshan Mu, Biatang Exinger walked a few steps towards him, then stood in place, he closed his eyes, and an invisible spiritual power enveloped the entire space. This intangible mental storm converged in one direction, then appeared in Qian Shenmu's mind at the same time. At this moment, Qian Shenmu only felt that all his thoughts were the figure of Beatang Exinger, everywhere. Stop. A voice came from Beatang Exinger's mouth, and then, it was as if there were countless voices at the same time in Qian Shenmu's mind. Stop, stop. Endless sound echoed. Qian Shenmu only felt an invisible storm hit him, his body flew backwards. Qin Yin stopped suddenly, raised his head, and looked at the Tang dynasty stared in shock. Beatang Exinger didn't look at him anymore, but instead started targeting other people. Soon, another Donghazong strongman was shocked and almost killed by his disciples. Sis. Qianshan looked at Hua Kangking at dusk. Many people in the East Wasteland considered her to be the first person of the rhythm of the younger generation, but she herself understood that Hua Kangking was stronger than her, both in talent and strength. Hua Kangking's eyes flashed, then she lifted her steps and walked to the north of Tang Exinger. Beatang Exinger looked at him. The two eyes are opposite. Invisible mental powers collided. Hua Kangking's eyes were clear. He always looked at her calmly. Beatang Exinger showed a worried expression. His mental strength was not as good as Hua Kangking's. Already. At this point, Ye Fusion's body was thrown out again, hitting a rock, humming, and the corner of his mouth was bleeding. King Li 3 stepped forward, oppressing him. Ye Fusion stood up, then turned around, and continued to escape on the mountain road ahead. Run. King Li looked very cold and said, "It's enough to stop them." By the way, with two people continue to hunt Ye Fusion. Ye Fusion's eyes flashed like cold straws in front of him. The time is almost here. Chapter 349, Extreme Explosion. In the world where Lake Wang shines, wars continue to erupt. Even if they are all the pride of the main forces, they still bear the terrible pressure, not only from the battle. Ye Fusion's figure gradually disappeared. King Li and the two divine powers of the Qin dynasty were expelled together. The mountain road is steep. Ye Fusion did not look back, and walked all the way. In front of him, it was like coming out of the world of thunder and turning into a world of ice. There was an ice storm raging. Before people arrived, Ye Fusion shivered. The snow that fell on Tianshan Mountain condensed into frost and turned into a part of the frozen world. Ye Yanyan stepped into it, only feeling cold, very cold. He seemed to be in the snow-covered Tianshan Mountain, and the coldness continued to attack his bones. Not only cold, evil thoughts are also stronger, and melt into cold. King Li's third eyes are constantly changing, emitting various negative emotions, and terrible killing thoughts. They are staring at Ye Fusion's back with bloodthirsty thoughts. Up ahead, we can see the Buddha's shadow from Qiangqiu Temple and the ancient autumn of Dao Dezong. They were getting further and further away. They only had one goal, to climb the Tianshan Mountains. As for their comrades, they have all fallen, unable to keep up active at this point. Ye Fusion suddenly changed direction and walked to the side. On King Li's body, dragon armor covered his entire body. Four figures, walking in the snow and ice, climbing a large rock, they arrived on a flat ground, and there was a cliff in the distance, as if there was no way to leave. Ye Fusion's steps finally stopped, a light breeze blew, the white clothes were stained with snow, and the snow back was slightly gloomy. Where can he escape? King Li's eyes shone with a terrifying red light. Before that, Ye Fusion's long stick hit his knee. It's embarrassing and embarrassing. At this moment, his killing of Ye Fusion surpassed everything. Really lit up. I just want Ye Fusion to die. There's nothing to worry about now. Ye Fusion turned his back on King Liko and said. King Li blinked. What does Ye Fusion's words mean? Will someone interfere? Not many people were able to come here, not to mention the squabbling that broke out below. It is very difficult for anyone to come here. You said, how's the place where your bones are buried? Ye Fusion turned slowly and looked at King Li. At this moment, there seemed to be a majesty in his disciples. On Ye Fusion's body, veins roared and roared, as if a golden fire was burning blood, and an attractive brilliance filled his body. Explosion. The prince's will shook, and still faintly stole the golden light. Ye Fusion's entire person seems to be metamorphosing in sublime at this moment. His blood, bones, and wealth rose crazily. Storm form. The blizzard in the sky, the snowflakes seemed to be stained by the holy light. There was a golden light shining in his eyes. King Li looked at Ye Fusion's eyes. At this moment, he has an illusion, as if he is standing in front of Ye Fusion. He wants to be lower and worship. What happened? King Li's face was very ugly, and Ye Fusion's breath rose wildly, especially the will, which made him have the idea of kneeling and surrendering, which was unreasonable. Who is he? The grandson of the Qin dynasty, the son of the prince, will be able to inherit Detong's character in the future. He was born noble and had an extraordinary number of lives. How many people could make him kneel and worship in this eastern desert? How could a character who had been in the desert for 2 years make him feel this way? Not only King Li, the two next to him are both royal figures, descendants of the Qin dynasty, and the cultivation is more heavenly, which is much higher than Ye Fusion's, which is almost a big country. It can't be fixed, it's impossible to do it in any way, but why do they have the illusion of worship at this time? Ye Fusion looked at the three men in front of him, the imperial will in his body was still burning, and his body seemed to be boiling under this power. His body became very strong, when the emperor came to the world. Since Emperor Yi's birth in Donghai city that year, this was the first time he had freed Emperor Yi so thoroughly. He had previously used Emperor to control the ruins many times, and he had occasionally used it in battle. Never had it been released as thoroughly as this. He also understands that the gap between the realms is insurmountable, and King Li is not in his consideration, but the two next to King Li are real heavenly numbers, 9 positions in the sky and 9 steps in the far phase. This position is almost a huge gap. In the world of practice, this was insurmountable, so King Li and the three of them were extremely confident. As long as they caught up, he would die. Because of this, Ye Fusion exploded at this moment, and his body was burning with impatience. He looked at King Li and had nothing but killing thoughts. Who are you? King Liping's inner shock looked at Ye Fusion. Although he doesn't know what abilities Ye Fusion has released, but based on Ye Fusion's changes at this time, he is destined to be more than just a cottage. But Li has been to Nandu, Ye Fusion is out of Nandu, a small country in the land of hundreds of countries. Why is there such a temper? Like an emperor above, the one who killed you. Ye Fusion held a 5-elemental scepter in his hand, and it was covered with a layer of emperor armor, which was even more dazzling than the dragon armor worn by King Li. Keen soul beats, there is keen soul behind Ye Fusion. This keen soul is not played, but the sound of the piano is heard. The spirit of heaven and earth overpowers Kan's soul, and spiritual rays will surround him. It was Ye Fusion's spiritual will that was in control. At the same time, the 5-elemental stick in his hand skyrocketed, and the emperor's will flowed into it. The 5-elemental staff seemed to be burning, the 5-clawed stick turned into a dazzling emperor color, the arms danced, and the situation changed color. At this time, Ye Fusion's thoughts appeared in the last battle of Tokai city. That beautiful feeling is reproduced. The emperor's tactics were pressing to the extreme. Every move is like the emperor's way, but there is another will to guide and control in the East China Sea. He, now, fends for himself. The 5-element scepter fell from the sky, opened the world, King Li's eyes froze, and the power, even with the help of the prince's instrument, was still impossible to resist. The breath of the two people next to King Li was pushed to the extreme. The situation roared and the dragon screamed. One of them appeared a golden dragon sword and the other was an ice stick. They are all princely instruments. After all, their identities were extraordinary. Is a descendant of the royal family. 2 true dragons rushed out and headed for the 5-elemental scepter, covered in ice. Boom! A loud sound came out, the earth seemed to explode, the dragon shadow shattered, and flying snowflakes furiously smashed into King Li's face, and his body moved back quickly, knowing that Ye Fusion deliberately lured them here to kill him. He can no longer participate in this battlefield. Hey! Ye Fusion fiercely came out, the long stick swept out, and walked between the two heavenly strongmen. He seduces King Li to hunt and kill him along the way, and finds an opportunity to kill King Li. How can King Li live? Go! Kan's beating soul continued to drill into the eardrums of the two, and the stick in Ye Fusion's hand turned into a wooden property, and continued to bend down and catch King Li's escaping body. Come back, the baguette withdrew. Save me, King Li shouted, his voice echoing in the Tianshan mountains, and continued to spread into the distance. He felt Ye Fusion's intent to kill, and he actually felt the threat of death. Just leave it. A roar came, and a figure behind him stabbed, his body like a dragon. At this time, Ye Fusion only felt that the golden dragon's mouth was stabbing him, the strength was extraordinary. He slammed King Li behind him to prevent him from escaping, and at the same time, a 5-elemental stick was pulled out, and another stick exploded, like a stream of clouds and water, bursting on Jinlong's body and smashing it. King Yin is out in the snow, sharp and rough, the chaos of the world, blooming in the imperial will, and wants to be surrendered by Kang Sheng. Ye Fusion continued to move forward, and the 5-elemental stick waved his hand again and again, the world roared, snowflakes fluttered with the 5-element stick, turned into a horror vortex, and gathered the world. Ye Fusion often practices boxing on weekdays, and when he trains, he uses imperial tricks to move, hiding the emperor's rhythm now, using imperial tricks to push the rhythm into the sky. Hits 9 hits. Out of the sky, heaven and earth seemed to roar. The strong man in the heaven realm in front of the Qin dynasty felt a power that showed a terrifying look. This artistic conception, coupled with the influence of the sound of the harpsichord, Ye Fuxian gave it to the people. It feels like an invincible emperor, under the pressure of will, it is desperate. The Qin dynasty Qin Zhangha's dragon rushed out, and the sharp sword stirred up. He roared, trying to block the stick. The long stick covered the sky, swept over, and tore down the sky. Bang! A terrible sound came out, everything shattered, the 5 elemental stick broke through all the defenses, and blasted the body of the heavenly strong man without any tension. The body lay straight down, the body was deformed and lying on the back. The body in the snow trembled slightly, and blood continued to spill, which reddened the white snow on the ground. With his eyes open, he was out of breath, as if staring dead. He was a descendant of the royal family of the Qin dynasty and a genius in the realm of heaven. Not far from the prince. Once he entered the prince, he was the mainstay of the Qin dynasty. Today, Mengtian Mountain. Seeing this scene, other strong people in Qin Li's face showed a look of fear, especially Qin Li. Under the sound of the piano, his mental strength was completely suppressed, and there was endless panic in his eyes and pupils. Previously, he thought that in Tianshan Mountain, Ye Fuxian would die in his hands, it would be easy to kill Ye Fuxian. But now, Ye Fuxian is like the current emperor, he is like an ant, and he has no ability to resist. Who could understand this desperation? Looking at Ye Fuxian's eyes, Qin Li is not proud at this moment, only feeling very humble. Chapter 350, Snow in the Sky. On another battlefield, Qin Li's cry for help resounded in the Tianshan Mountains, and resounded between the mountain walls. The struggling crowd only felt their hearts tremble, and this cry for help turned out to be from Qin Li. The 3 strong Qin dynasty chased Ye Fuxian, the 2 heavenly strong people, plus Qin Li, but Ye Fuxian had not entered the sky. No matter how you look at it, this is not a level battle, not a spike at all. But now, why was Qin Li the one to ask for help? Ye Fuxian was also spat on and injured by Qin Li's 3 people before this. He had fled, Qin Li also let them not chase together, just need to intercept the others. Go. Dong Hazong's people quickly retreated from the battlefield, and Fuyun Janzong's people also split up and went up the mountain road. Qin Li is Qin Yu's son. In this alliance of top forces, Qin Li played a very important role. If he died in Tianshan and they also existed, it would be difficult to explain it like the Qin dynasty. Gotang, Shuyun, and Doshengshan disciples naturally will not go to war, and they will also come out, and everyone is under tremendous pressure. There is even a battlefield on the mountain road ahead, where there are 2 strong men in the suspended king palace against a woman. They are the last to come and meet on the road. Somehow the battle broke out. The woman was Lu Langxiu, her realm was not as good as the other party, but when she was fighting, a book was suspended above her head. When it was released, the world froze, and the power was terrible. Seeing people coming, their fighting stopped, Lu Langxiu glanced at each other, and then rushed on the mountain road. His will wasn't that strong, but he was still able to keep his mind and will from being eroded by the power of Baoshu. In the direction of the cliff, Ye Fuxian naturally knows that Qin Li's roar may attract the following attention. Why did he persuade Qin Li to come here? The first is to cut off Qin Li's strong support and kill him completely. The second is because he doesn't want others to see his current state. The emperor's will is too dazzling. Ye Qingdi is a taboo. Snow Ape Sr. died, he naturally didn't want to expose too many secrets to the world. Moreover, his country can't last too long, and the empire will erupt, he can't endure such a strong power, he burns his potential frantically, making physical and mental strength sublime and turning into a terrible state. Only at this time can battle abilities erupt, and fighting abilities that violate the laws of practice naturally have to pay a price. But even if he knew he would pay this price, he still wanted to kill Qin Li, which was his determination. After killing the strong man in heaven, he walked towards Qin Li and the other strong man. A whistling aura gathered in the body, an extraordinarily beautiful snowflake, but fell in the eyes of the powerful Qin dynasty, but it was like his funeral. His ability to train was an ice attribute ability. The magic wand pointed at Ye Fuxian, the frost dragon appeared, and at the same time, a terrible snow swept over, and he wanted to bury the snow and ice in Ye Fuxian's body. Kill! He roared, and blades of ice and snow appeared on the ground to kill Ye Fuxian, but he didn't have too much confidence. Ye Fuxian, who was bathed in the glory of the emperor, looked like he was wearing the armor of the divine emperor. After the bombardment of the strong man, the momentum in his body did not decrease. Instead, he became stronger. When the five elemental wand danced, the air around it flowed away. Everywhere I went, everything crumbled, and the snow that killed him turned into ice, snow and dust. Bang! A deep sound came out, and the sharp edges continued to explode as the five elemental stick swept out. Ye Fusion's arm seemed to be waving in a strange pattern. Finally, the arm slammed forward, and the action seemed to be very slow. You can see every action, but slow is fast. Like a good rule, the stick is like a void that can break. Finally, the five-element stick banged on the ice dragon that was born, and an explosive sound rumbled out. The ice dragon exploded and smashed madly. The five-element stick continued to advance, splitting the opponent's body, and the momentum remained. Guardian of Ice and Snow. The stick of human rights made a sound, and a blizzard condensed into the body, turning his body into a snow sculpture, like eternal ice, showing the shape of a dragon. The five-elemental wand fell without tension, the ice froze and broke, the five-elemental wand banged on his head, and blood flew with snowflakes. No. King Lee showed a very strong fear, and he walked towards the cliff. Ye Fusion's eyes were indifferent, staring at his back, right across his body and headed towards King Lee. Hey! King Lee slammed the ground and ran towards the cliff. Where Ye Fusion gave him a chance, his body flickered like lightning, an ice spell bloomed, and a terrifying blizzard erupted in front of him. Lee's body was buried, and King Lee shuddered and stiffened. Ye Fusion jumped into the sky with a volley, and the club exploded. You can't kill me, King Lee shouted, and Fang Zhang's fateful soul was released madly. The dragon shadow on his body shook, raised his hand in front of him, and the dragon armor covered his arm. The five-elemental stick fell, and a hoarse, crisp sound came out. Even if it was a weapon body, King Lee's body was shaken back, his blood was vomiting, and he was lying on the ground, his face ash. Ye Fusion continued to move forward, a long stick spun in his hand, and King Lee's gaze on the ground was like seeing a dead person. King Lee really lost his life. I asked you before I die, I regret it. Ye Fusion stepped towards him step by step, coldly, it's not a joke. Let me go. If you kill me, my father will kill you at all costs, and the hut will not be able to protect you, King Leko said. It seems that Bai and you are bullshit. Ye Fusion raised his long stick, and King Lee's eyes were desperate. At this time, the wind screamed from behind. Ye Fusion frowned. When he turned around, he saw a beautiful figure walking on the ice and snow, which turned out to be Chu Yan. He passed through the battlefield and did not join the battle there, but came here. You saved me. King Lee was now on the verge of despair. He didn't even think about how Chu Yu saved him. Ye Fusion glanced at Chu Yan, and there was a murderous glint in his eyes. Seeing Ye Fusion's eyes, Chu Yan only felt a slight pain in his heart. Yes, he is King Lee's girlfriend. Ye Fusion only treats him as an enemy and can't wait to kill him. Looking at the beautiful figure, the dazzling figure, King Lee, the proud son of the sky in the East Wasteland, lay under him, and the two King dynasties existed and died in his hands. But what about it? This young man who had great talent and face value, and who dared to kill King Lee in a joke, the first person to break his heart, wanted him to die, because they were on opposite sides. He was King Lee's honorary girlfriend. Thinking of this, Chu Yunmei lost his eyes and lowered his head slightly. He thought of the girl who was also the Moon Yu sect, a dazzling and pure and flawless woman. He was a little jealous and even jealous. Why didn't he know her first? Looking up, Chu's beautiful eyes stared at Ye Fusion, and a soft voice came out of his mouth, I like you. The snow is still falling on the beautiful face. Chu's words seem to let space freeze for it. Ye Fusion freezes, and King Lee freezes. By the way, at this time Chu's words were a bit out of place, even ridiculous and strange. But he said such a word at this time, maybe he knew that if he didn't say it, he wouldn't have the chance to say it again, because the person he wanted first wanted to kill him. Yes. King Lee vomited blood, and his chest was extremely undulating. He stared at Chu Shi coldly, his eyes as if from Jiu purgatory. Bitch, he growled angrily at Chu Yu. When he faced despair, Ye Fusion controlled his fate. His girlfriend said to Ye Fusion, I like you. No one could imagine the despair and humiliation King Lee was in today. You're afraid I'll kill you, Ye Fusion said after stumbling. He felt ridiculous. The only explanation is that Chu Yu saw the scene and was afraid that he would kill him if his heart was as cold and bitter as snowflakes in the sky. He looked at Ye Fusion, and suddenly laughed at himself, and said, do I like him, so humble. She was one of the three beauties of Wangu Zongshan, and one of the three great beauties of the East Wasteland. He first met the person he fell in love with and even told him that I like you. But Ye Fusion thought that he was only trying to save his life. How sad. You bitch. King Li shuddered, looking at Chu Chu. Ye Fusion didn't say anything. He looked back at King Li, his arm slightly twisted, and the 5 elements stuck together. I'm sorry, that bitch gave it to you. You can do whatever you want, I'm sorry. King Li looked at Ye Fusion in despair. Who in the world is not afraid of death? The more arrogant he is, the more afraid he is of facing death. He was born extraordinary, far above himself, waiting for his future to be bright. How could he be willing to die? You've lived long enough. Ye Fusion's voice fell, and the 5 elemental stick in his hand fell. With a soft whistle, King Li's body trembled, still keeping his eyes open and staring at him, blood running down his head, staining the white snow on the ground, and then covered by snowflakes. His head fell and King Li lay there quietly. He never dreamed that he would die like this. The snow in Tianshan is very cold. Chu Yan looked at the scene calmly, there was no wave in his heart, his beautiful eyes were still staring at the figure that was standing. In the snowflakes in the sky, he stands proudly, white as snow, bathing the emperor's glory, and incomparable. Time doesn't seem to move. A handsome young man and a beautiful woman are standing in the snow.